Being sectioned means being subject to the whims of psychiatrists. The psychiatrist is a madman. I mean that quite seriously. And they are very often subject to the very things they diagnose. They have schizophrenia, they have paranoia, they have grandiosity. They don't get much euphoria. But they have bipolarity, suggestibility, labile, lability, aggressive, dismissive, you name it. And this is what they accuse people of. Now what you've got to understand is that when the psychiatrist assesses you, he does so based on criteria. It does not do so based on context. You can put context to him if you like and it will probably help your case. But when you come to see the psychiatrist, you will be talking to a man who is ticking boxes and observing your behaviour. Any deviation from his dull-spirited norm he can view as pathological if he wants to, if he doesn't have a sense that he likes you. They call that rapport. It means if they enjoy talking to you, really, that's all that it means. That's all it can mean. That's all that it is in practice, that's all it is in experience. You wouldn't think they'd be so petty, but believe me, you wouldn't believe how petty they can be. So, you talk to these people, and what do they come up with? They come up with a series of questions that they want answered, and if you answer them in a way that fits their criteria for mental illness, then you're going to lose your liberty, you're going to lose your rights, you're going to lose your voice, because they say you lack capacity. If you don't agree with that, it's because you're ill. If you don't think you need medication, it's because you're ill. There's no basis in science whatsoever, even for psychiatry itself. Never mind for the idea that you call people befitting incarceration and befitting drugging because they don't agree with those things. It's like saying, well, okay, we'll give you 30 lashes. That'll bring you round. If you don't agree with it, it's because you need 30 lashes. Yeah? You don't believe that you need some of the most toxic drugs on the planet. It's because you need some of the most toxic drugs on the planet. You think this is uncommon? This is routine. This is day to day. It's happened thousands of times already today. And it's outrageous. Now, I accuse them of being many things, and I'll explain how these typify these things. Schizophrenic is having two or maybe more opposed views or personalities which are in some conflict with each other. The conflict is really evidenced not necessarily from those aspects, but is a result of them. You observe conflict, and you put two and two together, you say, okay, well, it's schizophrenia. Well, now it turns out that if you haven't washed your hair for a few days, you can have schizophrenia. And you can lose your liberty by that. I mean, this is unbelievable. Once the social workers have got their claws in, they will try things they wouldn't do to other people. There are plenty of people that have never been sectioned that should be literally like in the stocks having tomatoes pelted at them. That's how crazy it is, you know. Not that everybody that's ill should have vegetables or whatever thrown at them, but you get what I'm saying. There's a lot of criminally dangerous people that never go anywhere near sectioning. There's a lot of people that are drugged up that should never have been there in the first place. Abused people that are having difficulties of functioning, and they get it piled on until they submit to Lucifer's energy field, which is all that the sectioning is. That's all that it is. That is all that it is. Fallen angel energy field. You submit to the high priest of psychiatry. You submit to the diagnoses of the high priest of psychiatry. You submit to the diagnosis of the high priest of psychiatry that the nurses agree with, that the law agrees with, the court agrees with, the family agrees with, the whole society, the education, the universities. This is Lucifer's law. It was developed out of Lucifer's mind, Lucifer's energy field in dirty, turgid times on the back of usury finance, inventing money out of nowhere so that everybody became venal. There was no real selection pressure to good. Anytime things went wrong fiscally, it had nothing to do with irresponsible behaviour of any sort. So you never get thrown back on yourself. You just have to be part of the clique that invents money. Otherwise, you're just a labouring class nobody in the minds of Lucifer and Luciferians. So what you've got to understand is that Lucifer is distinct from Satan in one respect at least. and that's that he's symbolically different. When you want him to be, it's a fallen angel doctrine, okay? So you think, okay, well, he's not as bad as Satan. You overlook the fact that supposedly Satan was cast out of heaven in the book of Revelation. You don't go there, you just say, look, this is something which is distinct from the Lord of Hell. You know, you make something Greek out of it or whatever. You say, look, there's a fallen angel, or it's Lucifer rising. So maybe it is Satan, but it's the better side of Satan. You don't really care. All you're saying is that there's an image of rebellion that you think is a good thing for you. Now, why would anybody in their right mind think that? Well, maybe they're full of Christianity and they're sick of Christianity. So it's a good symbol for them. Maybe they are people who actually find an energy in this kind of stuff. They actually get high off it. You know, maybe they lack a sense of the spiritual powers and they've rejected Christianity in their heart, so they've got no alternative. And so this stuff just gets through to them, you know. Maybe they have a guilty conscience because they've given up Christianity. It's kind of like a mother complex, you know. You give up an aspect of yourself and you think, well, what am I going to replace it with? And so the replacement is a kind of neurotic replacement. So you become a Luciferian. Nobody in China become a Luciferian. The CCP is not Luciferian, it's satanic. If they were talking about the Kuomintang, the Nationalist Party, maybe you'd say they're Luciferian. Maybe so. It's an affinity thing, you know. Buddhism is Luciferian, satanic. Maybe a bit more satanic than Luciferian. But, you know, the devil is sometimes used to cast out the devil. You've got to be aware of all the interactions, you know. I've heard of demons visiting people that were driven off by Buddhism, but there's demonic forces within Buddhism as well. So you've got to watch out because it appears in your ease. You know, it appears in how easy you find it. The roundness is there. Your temperament is as round as your religion. You know what I mean? It's round to it. It's round to the shape of it. So your behaviour will follow the line of it. If you're in true religion, you'll have true righteousness, true divinity. But everything else, it's just touch and go, man. It's just dualism. Even if it purports not to be dualism. It gets into a dualism which actually separates self from reality in order to avoid getting into dualism. That's the East for you. But if you generate a spiritual field or tap into a lineage field that does a lot of that, you can get a certain power from it, and your spiritual vision and your being can grow from it, and then you become archetypal of, well, strength, succor, counsel. You become the valley to which the rivers of the mountains run for their rest, and so it becomes a thing, okay? It becomes a thing. But if you don't know anything about that, or you've got a bit of a heated temperament, or your nation has, or you've got a complex where you don't know whether to belong to your nation or not, and there's a Christianity involved in it, maybe you get in with this fallen angel doctrine, and that's what usury is. It's fallen angel doctrine. You invent money out of nowhere, and they change the meaning of it, okay? They change the meaning from inventing money out of nowhere to excessively inventing money out of nowhere. Well, excessively charging an interest actually is what it's supposed to mean in the new definition, but it means lending it at all in a way that's inventing money. It destabilizes currency, it destabilizes values, and then you start to create all sorts of systems and laws to strengthen what it itself is taking away by its own nature. You know, I mean, usury is to get control of a venal people without using weapons. You know, usury is not to get control of your own people in a way that destroys the entire moral and cultural fabric of the nation. You know, if you're going to use usury, realise that it's a sin even on other people, but on your own people, it's a nightmare. I mean, it's just, it couldn't be worse. So, okay, these schizophrenic people, you find them, very often they have a wild appearance, these psychiatrists. Very often they are split in their attitudes and their energies. They're very suggestible. You know, you can get sunshine or rain depending on how you come at them, and it can be very subtle, you know. You bring all the light of the world, and sometimes they're intimidated by it, and they really don't like it because they're in a position of what they think of as moral authority. And don't forget as well, they're scared. They're to let you go, because if that happens and you do something wrong, something happens to you, or you hurt yourself or hurt other people, whatever, they're going to get blamed for it in their minds. But if they drug you, nobody is blamed then. That's the way the Lucifer's mind talks to them. It says you will not be blamed if this happens, because you say, well, there was a risk. You see, the way that risk works in these people's minds is that the more ridiculous the narrative, the less that it's questioned. You say there's a risk this could have happened, there's a risk this could happen. We have to keep him in because this could happen. We have to drug him because this could have happened. And risk is the great Wizard of Oz of psychiatry. Got 10 more seconds. So yeah, they're suggestible. They call the Holy Spirit grandiosity. They're the high priests of a false religion. They can't prove any of their claims.